This episode of the All About Nothing podcast is sponsored by listeners like you and Big Media LLC, encouraging you to check your voter registration. In a world where every voice counts, ensuring your registration is accurate and up to date is the simplest, most effective way to guarantee your vote is heard. Don't leave your participation to chance. Take a moment today and verify your status and stay ready for the next election by visiting theallaboutnothing.com/voter.
The All About Nothing podcast may have language and content
that isn't appropriate for some.
Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, Nothingers, to the All About Nothing podcast. I am Barrett Gruber, host of this thing. You can follow me across all social media at Barrett Gruber. Please subscribe and share the show. That's how we get new listeners. Also, please consider supporting the show financially by visiting theallaboutnothing.com and becoming an official member and proudly calling yourself a true Nothinger. We'll have more details on that at the end of the show. If you can't do that, please give us a 5-star review, a like, and follow us across all of social media. You can find links at our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com. Before we get into it this week with my guest, Jeremy Jones, who is the candidate and Democratic nominee for South Carolina's House District 88. I want to thank my guest last week, Mark Lynch, for being on the show. It was an interesting conversation. That's what I have to say about that. I don't know what the outcome of the primary was from when this airs compared to when the special primary election ran, but my hope is that something happened. We're going to get into the episode. My guest this week, Jeremy Jones, of course, again, nominee for the South Carolina House District 88, which is the district that we both live in, right? Just to give you a little introduction to Jeremy, Jeremy Jones is walking into this race as a claims examiner who has worked as a substitute teacher, helped small businesses survive COVID, and put in time at the state's Medicaid program, which means he's spent his whole career watching how state policy actually lands on regular people's lives. Now, not just how it reads as a press release. He's running as the Democratic nominee for South Carolina's House District 88, a Lexington County seat that's been anything but quiet. It was recently vacated by R.J. May, resigned amid federal child sexual exposure material charges, filled by a special election in December, and now goes back before voters this November, this time with Jeremy on the ballot against the man who won the special election, Pastor John Lassinger. Jeremy's pitch is simple. He punches a clock like everyone else here in Lexington, Red Bank, and South Congaree, and thinks it's time the person representing this district does too. Welcome, Jeremy, to the All About Nothing podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a long time coming. We've known each other for almost 6 years, more than 6 years.
Right, yeah.
And I feel like the likelihood of you running has always been there.
Yes, absolutely.
Just a little back history between Jeremy and I. I work elections for the Lexington County Elections Commission, and which means that I'm clerking. I'm running an actual precinct. And Jeremy in November of 2020 came in as one of my poll workers. It was that long ago.
Yeah.
Golly.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, I encouraged him that he should be a clerk. And then he decided to run. So first, give us a little history about yourself, like a biography.
Gosh. Well, I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from the University of South Carolina-Aiken. Like I said, I've been working since I graduated in 2017, whether it be substitute teaching, claims examiner, working through COVID with LabCorp. And basically, I have a brother. I live with my mother, who I take care of because she just retired.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes, on July 1st. And so I've been living with her for a while because I'm single. I don't have, husband or any children. No pets.
Okay.
I used to have a pet, but we had to give him away.
Oh.
Because we were moving from Columbia to Lexington, and we just wanted to have a fresh start.
Yeah. I've been in that situation where we've had to go pet for one reason or the other. When my girls were born, we had a dog that was just a little aggressive about the sounds that they would make, and it was it was uncomfortable to have a dog that would react to your newborns that way. And we had family friends that wound up taking the dog. So I completely understand that. Walk us through your path. Forest Acres to AC Flora to USC Aiken. What made Red Bank, Lexington, West Columbia, what made this feel like home when you and your mom arrived here in 2017?
People.
Yeah.
So my mom found the house that we were gonna live in when I was working as a camp counselor for kids with disabilities in Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did that overnight drive to deal with that situation when I was in my 20s. And she found the house, and then I came home after being done with camp, and we had already kind of got situated in Red Bank. Well, so we had already been in Red Bank before, but the house that we were in Red Bank was by White Knoll High School.
Sure.
So it was in District 96. So we moved to District 88 a year into being in Red Bank.
Okay.
So like the situation was that we had a realtor that was shady, and she lost her license for being shady to us.
Goodness.
And so it was very bad in a sense where we had to pick ourselves up and like move to a different area. So I understand like it was tough to be like, okay, so how do we move to different pastures? So we did find something right down the street in District 88. And we've been there since July of 2017. Or 2018, sorry. And our neighbors are 30-somethings.
Okay.
Same age as me. And my neighbor to my right came in and was like, hey, you can use our trash can for your trash.
Because you all hadn't been delivered yet.
Yeah. Stuff. We needed trash cans for stuff and throwing stuff away, throwing boxes away. And so basically, we just the people made us feel at home.
Yeah.
And it's very quaint and small, and that's why I'm running for District 88, because the people are great. They're some of the best people around.
I agree.
And the thing is that I don't think I would be running for office if I didn't feel like the people were great.
Yeah. No, I believe that our district, especially and mostly counting my neighborhood, has a much higher level of diversity than what the voting record for this district over the last 53 years has really projected. Yeah. I mean, I have Black neighbors and Hispanic neighbors and Vietnamese neighbors and Chinese neighbors and Korean neighbors and Pakistan. Like my neighborhood itself, within throwing distance of my house, I can hit so many different nationalities. And ultimately, I think a lot of the issues and why our district continues to vote the way it does is because of turnout.
Yes, absolutely.
So, all right, you've worked as a substitute teacher, you've helped businesses through COVID, you worked in state Medicaid, and now you're a claims examiner. How does that mix of jobs shape how you'd approach this particular seat?
Well, so punching a clock, I don't know, not that I don't know about owning a business, but I don't own my own business.
Sure.
So working for the betterment of what students, businesses, and their employees, Medicaid, dealing with, knowing that, there's a small amount of money that you have to make until you get Medicaid.
Yeah.
So knowing those different types of things that I know and who to deal with has shaped me as an individual and a politician that will shape how I approach knowing that not everybody owns a business.
Yeah.
So,
well, your mom worked for
doing
Dominion Energy
yes, for 35 years. Yeah.
Goodness, that is now. So she worked for Scanum before, and then was grandfathered into Dominion.
Mm-hmm.
Your brother's been in the Army for 20 years.
Yeah,
that's significant.
Yeah.
How did your upbringing, I guess, sort of set the tone for your politics?
So my upbringing, my mom was a single mom for the most part. She didn't have. I would go to my grandparent. My grandparents died at a young age. My young age of I was in elementary school when they died. But I would go to my cousin's house and be taken care of by them while my mom worked 2 jobs at one time. So I felt that, I was a little bit on my own at times.
Sure.
In the world. So basically having to pick up yourself on your bootstraps and, in middle school, I got access to my mom's to our house by myself.
Latchkey kid.
So I was home alone, watching TV, doing homework, on the computer. And so having that sense of,
you had to drive, you had to have your own drive.
I had to have my own chutzpah and, drive to get me up every day to do the grind of life.
Yeah.
And the thing is that you just know that that's something that you live with every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Did your mother, of course, being with Dominion for 35 years, your brother's been in the Army for 20. Did that sort of set the tone for a loyalty to something?
Yes. It did set a tone of saying, oh, their longevity, their longevity speaks tonal to what I need to do in life.
Yeah.
And now I haven't taken that in general to my work because I've done a lot of different things. I'm still trying to find my niche and what I'm passionate about. Even though I was passionate about Medicaid, I'm passionate about insurance as a claims examiner. But, I just want to help people.
Yeah.
And, knowing them and how they've raised me as a child and as an adult, I know that something that I am passionate about, I stick with it.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've known you for more than half a decade now, and you have been heavily involved in politics, especially Lexington politics. You were the president of the Midlands Young Democrats?
So I was the chair.
I said president.
Central Midlands, which covers Lexington, Richland, Orangeburg, and Fairfield.
Yeah. County. What was that like? What was that experience like to be the chair of, several of counties, Lexington, Columbia, over in Richland? There's a lot of people,
competing interests and people and stuff. Yeah. So it was interesting because, mainly our group is mainly Richland and Lexington.
Yeah.
But we did have an Orangeburg person and a Fairfield person who came to Columbia and did a lot of our, group activities with us.
Yeah.
So that's why we added Orangeburg and Fairfield. It was usually just Richland and Lexington.
Gotcha.
So mainly Richland and Lexington are our main people.
Well, and that's a million people between Richland and Lexington counties.
Yeah.
So that's pretty significant. How many districts are spread out between Richland and Lexington? Like 17 or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah. District 88 has had a rough year. RJ May's resignation and federal charges, his sentencing, a special election, and now a full election again in November. What was it like watching all of that unfold last year into this year?
It made me very mad.
Yeah.
It made me very mad because this, So I ran in 2024.
Right.
And I had to drop out because of work.
Yeah.
I had just gotten my new job as a claims examiner with my job, who will not be named because
I don't know who they are.
yes.
He could be making all this up. No, I'm kidding.
No, but no. So I had just, had to drop out, and I was like, oh man, I dropped out, and we could have had real representation if we just put
because you dropped out after the primary.
After the primary,
yeah,
yeah.
In 2024,
I would have been the nominee.
Yeah,
but I dropped out.
Yeah. And ultimately, what that did was basically just hand John Lassinger he didn't even have to continue running, which is actually pretty significant in respect to how he's running. I mean, RJ May.
Yeah.
But RJ May was the assumed winner.
Right.
But he still also got a pretty good chunk of the votes, considering people in this district knew that the FBI and Department of Homeland Security investigations had ransacked his house, had pulled something like 36 different devices and hard drives out of his home. And if you put two and two together, you realize that the reason that Homeland Security investigation is involved in anything is because usually it's child endangerment.
Right.
Now, he has two daughters, and RJ May will now serve at least potentially up to 18 years or whatever in prison for essentially what was some of the most disgusting evidence I've ever read described.
Yeah.
I had to stop reading after the second video of description.
Yeah.
It was horrifying. But voters in this district still voted for a man who was widely recognized as someone who was under investigation. Now, he went into office, he served his 2025 term session, and sat there and played on a phone, which I didn't think he was allowed to have a phone anymore, based on, ongoing investigations. But, what do I know? Our district was in turmoil. There was national news about what insanity was going on here, and just on the cusp of it, you would see reporters kind of start to acknowledge a little bit, and these people sent him back to the state house, knowing everything they knew.
Yeah,
that would have potentially been an easy walk-in win for you if
it would have been a win, and it has haunted me every single day.
Yeah, yeah. I would not doubt that. What made you decide to jump into this race specifically, rather than waiting or a special election or?
Well, so they had called me because we were waiting on Chuck Hightower's interest in the new election.
Yeah.
And so he was not going to go into the race anymore. So I was like, okay. They had called me like a couple of days before the
filing deadline.
Yeah. And I was like, let me get in the race. I had already been thinking about it on that Wednesday beforehand. And I was like, yeah, I think I should get in this race because we're going to need a voice, somebody on the ballot.
Yeah.
That has run in the district, that knows the district, that wants to fight for the district. And I felt like Lassinger
he's lived here.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a pastor of a church and he lives here.
Yeah. So
checked off two boxes.
Right. So basically I wanted to get in because it was I needed to fight.
Yeah.
And have an extra voice in the fight instead of just handing somebody a seat.
Yeah. Podcast listeners will remember that. So they also approached me about running in the district.
Yeah.
Before they went to Colonel Hightower for the special election. And ultimately, and this is something that I think is difficult for any one of the candidates that runs. It is not a full-time gig. No. It will not support you and your family.
Right.
It is really by sheer, just desire and passion to be able to do something like this. I mean, you look at some of the candidates that win their seats, like Heather Bauer, and you have to acknowledge just the fact that Heather has a newborn baby. Well, my baby's not newborn anymore, but has an infant and a full-time job and a husband who is extremely supportive. But just in conversations talking to Heather, how she does it, and she's like, well, when we're not doing anything and I'm not working on, district work, I'm doing my regular full-time job that pays to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
It's an extremely difficult thing. And that's, I think, why we see so many candidates, especially Republicans, that are lawyers that own their own law firms that can continue to pay themselves without, stepping foot in their office for 4 months. It's not easy to do.
Yeah.
You've said very few legislatures currently punch a clock, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
What does that mean for how bills get written or who they help?
It means that whomever the legislatures tend to serve is different when you're dealing with someone who's worked for a company or students or government in like capacity of, because I was a contractor for Medicaid. I wasn't a real government employee. I was a contractor. So they could fire me at any time. So you have to understand that who I serve is the people who work every single day and punch a clock. That's why it's on my website.
Yeah.
That's who I'm going to be laser focused on serving.
Yeah.
And when you own your business, you have to know, well, I have these taxes I have to pay, all this other stuff. And you don't know if they're taking kickbacks or anything like that. So I'm not here to take kickbacks. I'm not here to serve special interest. I'm here to serve the people that I work with every day or I work, I've worked with before.
Yeah. Let's talk about wages and the rising cost of just living. What does it look like day to day for a working family in Lexington County right now, just based on your observations?
It's a lot. Whether it's car payments that are high, grocery prices, anything.
Yeah.
It's very tough, especially. I see all around my neighborhood, you have to have multiple people living in your house to afford rent.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
In 2026 that we should have that. Farmers, we have some farmers, and they're dealing with tariffs and, droughts, all the other stuff. And we have to look around and say, okay, a lot of our food that we get in is not coming from South Carolina.
Yeah.
Like Jermaine Johnson says, we need to start growing that stuff and taking it back and buying locally so that our farmers can get a leg up. Yeah,
absolutely. I think, and you and Jermaine are right. I mean, South Carolina is fertile land, and we could have farmers that, if correctly positioned, could be very beneficial to District 88. I mean, District 88 is a combination of both urban and suburban and rural.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is like I said, it's an extremely diverse district that we live in. I think it's so difficult with the number of special interest groups that have their hands in on the legislature here in South Carolina, because where we look at committees like the Agriculture Committee and that they're really handicapping what the legislature could potentially do, because they're not letting certain pieces of bills come out of committee because they don't benefit the corporation that's backing somebody else's campaign.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of control, I think, that when people vote the Republicans over and over and over, it's it's one of those things that I don't think that people recognize
Right.
well enough to say, hey, this is kind of dangerous. We don't have representation here in South Carolina that's actually looking out for small business owners, farmers, teachers, healthcare workers. Like it's just. I mean, my mind is blown at how people can be reelected over and over and over without having actually accomplished anything. One of the things that, and we'll get to it, but one of the things that just infuriates me is the fact that a lot of these people that are currently elected to office, whether they be Republicans or sometimes even Democrats that have been in their seat for 20, 25 years, is that they forget that the role of the state government is to make the people's lives in this state better, not make them worse. And I feel like that's all our state legislature is concerned on is, I'm not saying they're looking to make things worse, but they're not working hard to make them better.
No.
You've criticized the legislature for not conforming to the state tax code to federal changes, and for not suspending the gas tax when the prices started to spike. Why? I guess walk us through why those specific fights matter.
We have a lot of people who don't have electric cars, so gas is very important for people to get around, and it's expensive. And people say it's when you have multiple children, when you have even if you don't have multiple children, trying to get to work every day on these roads and everything else, it's an added expense to your everyday life. So suspending that gas tax is at least some kind of relief until we can deal with what's happening federally. So that people can get that added relief. It's a temporary relief, but it's not like we can stop the president from bombing Iran and jacking up our oil prices because he's not going to listen to us. He's not for us. And then,
well, I'll just say there's a lot to be said for the fact that we just got the Q2 numbers from most of these energy companies, and Shell, BP, ConocoPhillips, they're all boasting profits of anywhere between 800 and 1,200% increases on their like in the billions of dollars on the amount of profit they made over cost. I think I don't know which one. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but specifically, but like Shell Station, and this is just hyperbole, but Shell may have made as much as $12 billion in profit in Q2. There are 4 quarters in a year, and we're still at war. I think it's safe to assume that they're going to continue to make a shit ton of money. They say things like, well, we need that money to reinvest into research and development and finding new wells and things like that, which, I roll my eyes at, because it's absurd to think that an oil company is ever going to do anything in research and development to try and find some alternate source of fuel when that's their breadwinner right there. But the state of South Carolina, there are things I think that they could do to potentially impact those companies, and I'd prefer to see it be done at a federal level. But I think it's time for the states to start stepping up, and I don't know what could potentially be done except for suspension of any gas or tax incentives to operate here in South Carolina. As long as you're going to reap benefits over the people buying it, then potentially let's do away. For the however long this war goes on, let's do away with all the tax benefits for a corporation like that wants to operate in South Carolina, that needs, because we have a thriving market or a thriving industry down in the ports, and they're pumping diesel, from these companies into those ships. Let's just ream up those taxes and then potentially try and hand out some sort of a tax relief benefit check to all of the taxpayers in South Carolina as a benefit of not letting companies slip through the loopholes. It's an idea.
And and then to your added thing about the conforming to the tax benefits with the whatever you call that bill, the tax changes that the President Trump has done.
Yeah.
I think, it would have had a little bit of added benefit, but I think like if we could have added that benefit to us as South Carolinians and adapted to that faster, I think that we could have saved some people some money.
Yeah.
A little bit, I'm not all about the tax changes that were made, especially keeping the higher tax on higher tax earners permanent tax cut.
Yeah.
But at least keeping a tax cut for those who were under $250,000.
Yeah.
A year. They needed a tax cut.
I think I agree. I think that if you're going to try and make people's lives better, I think that you should weigh the decisions against how many people it's going to benefit.
Yeah.
And our legislatures don't have a history of doing or of passing those laws. Like, we've got plenty of good Democrats that are in there that certainly speak their mind and they try to work stuff through committee, but ultimately it's difficult.
Yeah.
Do you actually, what sort of plan do you have for job creation here in District 88 as far as like, you mentioned manufacturing, service sector, workforce training.
Mm-hmm.
Where do technical colleges fit into that?
Technical colleges are very important. I think that we need to be investing in like fully like making those technical colleges free so that we can get more people into those electricians, welders, all the other stuff, all those other different types of trades, so that those we can start making, if we're going to invest in manufacturing in South Carolina, we could have, South Carolinians fill those jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely agree. Lexington County is growing fast.
Yeah.
What does smart growth mean to you in practice?
Smart growth. Have a moratorium on growth right now, but don't hinder small business growth,
sure,
etc. In the process, but also like have a moratorium on big business growth until we have a plan for our infrastructure, our water, our sewer, our school, because like if we're gonna be growing big, like with big businesses, and at least those small businesses will come in and have growth as well.
Red Bank's exploding.
Right, it is very exploding. Yes, so we have to deal with our infrastructure needs.
Yeah,
before we like if you're gonna build something, have a plan that has a long, like 50-year, like, okay, how will this look in 50 years?
Yeah.
Especially with our subdivisions.
Yeah.
And I hear that all the time. People are like, no more subdivisions. I understand. Because all these single family homes, we could be building townhomes or, apartments, stuff like that.
Sure.
So that we can at least bring down some of the housing prices.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Like I have definitely been an advocate for not having apartment buildings because as a homeowner, I've always recognized that an apartment building half a mile away from me is going to drive down the value of my home.
Yeah.
But I've had to sidestep that because there is an absolute necessity for lower cost family living that we don't really have a lot of right now here in this district. And people will say that, having apartment buildings or collections of townhomes in certain areas and things brings in more crime and brings in whatever. Well, sure, I recognize that the more people you bring in, the potential of having crime or drugs or violence of some sort is going to go up. But having more people in the district also increases the amount of money that goes into law enforcement and first responder expense, availability. So you counter that with what will potentially make the district grow in a more healthy way.
Yeah.
So it's, I get people can act as though they're going to be upset about it, but you're not going to notice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that going around and canvassing with candidates, conversations that I have with people, talking to them about things that bother them, which isn't even really what we do when we go around and canvassing. We're mostly just going around and say, hey, support so-and-so as a candidate. Also, the election's on November,
Mm-hmm.
But you still wind up talking to people and they still tell you about the things that bother them or that they think they need to express. And one of the things that they talk about all the time is the public schools.
Yeah.
And how their school is potentially losing funding because of kids going to some of these voucher programs in private schools and charter schools, and how even when because first of all, a voucher check isn't going to cover the total cost of any charter or private school.
So, I've got this shirt from ZJZDesigns.com. It's one of their Thanksgiving prints, and I wore it to family dinner last year. I got more compliments on that thing than any of the food that we brought. Seriously, their stuff is clever, it's comfy, and it's always a conversation starter. Whether you're into spooky Halloween teas, patriotic vibes, or you just want something original that doesn't look like it came from a big box store, check them out. ZJZ Designs. They've got new prints all the time, and I guarantee you'll find one that fits your vibe. Check out ZJZDesigns.com.
Of course, we say that, and now I hear fire truck. But it's even when those kids go and attend a school for a year, when they come back, the amount of red tape that these school districts are having to go through to get to grab hold of that funding and pull it back is just outrageous. There are schools in Lexington that are going to be underfunded because of the process that it takes to get that money back when the students come back to a public school life. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is something I think that our legislators should absolutely take a look at. You've called for stronger oversight of agencies like the SCDOT, Dominion Energy. Obviously, Dominion Energy in the news because they just recently had a rate hike, and people are reacting to what last year was a $300 electric bill, which is high. They're now seeing $400, $450, $500 electric bills.
Yeah.
What would you like for that oversight to actually look like as a future legislator?
We need to deal with making sure that the board that does these rate hikes have people that are listening to the people that they are supposed to serve, and not the business of these energy companies, etc. Because the thing is that if we make sure that we're listening to the people that we're dealing with, they're struggling.
Yeah.
And they're going to need to pay these bills, and some of these bills are higher than their mortgage.
Yeah.
And like somebody said at a meet and greet that I had with Julie Zimmerman, her meet and greet, and then I was up there answering questions, that you pay you mortgage your lights to be kicked out of your house because it's like a little too expensive.
Yeah.
To to heat.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. So we have to have guardrails on these price hikes. And we also need to make sure that, if they're wanting to do more price hikes, that we need to have an extra a bill that says, okay, if this price hike is going to be beneficial to the company in a way that they're going to put it back into the economy of South Carolina, like new jobs, etc., then we'll say that we'll approve that. But the thing is that we've got to have a legislature added oversight.
Yeah.
And the committees that deal with that oversight need to make sure that they're working in tandem with the ratepayers.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
everything.
That's ultimately every time Dominion, and they do it twice a year, every year.
Yeah.
And, that they come out with this idea of a necessary rate hike. And I always ask, well, what is it you're doing with this extra money? Because Dominion Energy will make for this year probably $7 billion in profit.
Mm-hmm.
And I get Dominion is regional. It's not just South Carolina, but it's parts of North Carolina and Georgia, and they have some stakes in energy around. But Duke Energy does the same thing for residents of the upstate in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia Power does the exact same thing over there in Georgia, and it's always curious if you're working with profits like these, and this is purely just opinion, but if you have a conglomeration like a Dominion Energy that is going to wind up boasting $7 billion in profit for fiscal year 2026, and they talk about reinvesting that into the company, what they're actually talking about is their stock buybacks. They're buying back their stock so that they can hold on to more of the company, so that they can have less impact from stockholders. Mm-hmm. But I think that in the South Carolina legislature's place, before they make any approvals on rate hikes, which they almost can't do anything about because Dominion's going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But what they should do is say, all right, we will allow a 3% rate hike if we can eliminate 6% of your tax loopholes.
Yeah.
Also, we need to see the profits that you all make for this fiscal year be reinvested either into the distribution of solar panels, the building of something, renewable energy, because Dominion could take and pull energy off of all our houses in South Carolina that are customers and start to limit the necessity of our non-renewable resources like the coal and whatnot that gets burned in order to provide the natural gas that's being burned to turn turbines and things like that. There's such an opportunity with all of this profit that could be used to prepare us for whatever it is that comes next. Yeah. And South Carolina as a state should absolutely be trying to reinforce those ideas.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's just it's crazy to me that we haven't. Where does public safety fit alongside economic opportunity in your view?
So, we need to invest in higher pay for our public safety officers, our police officers. But we also need to make sure that we're investing in mental health counselors, anything that has to do with mental health, and the mental health of not only the officers themselves, but when they go on patrol, they need to have mental health at the hand of everything that they do, because not everything is about somebody shooting someone. It could be a mental health issue. So dealing with our that adds a job to our agencies that protects the people who pay their salaries.
Yeah,
put police officer salaries. So that adds more jobs, that could help, alleviate wrongful death. So that's something that we need to do. We also need to make sure that we're not militarizing our agencies. And also, because the thing is that we don't need to militarize. I know that we have a high crime rate, but putting those mental health agencies, healthcare providers, and that space can alleviate some of our crime in general.
Well, I'll just also recognize that from the perspective of crime, South Carolina fails because South Carolina is notorious for not being able to get convictions on crime. And that comes down from our attorney general / governor nominee for the Republican Party, Alan Wilson, who has been a failed attorney general for 15 years.
Yeah.
So with respect to how the state handles the prosecution of crimes, it's not going great. No, and it hasn't been for almost 2 decades. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. As well, I think that one of the things that we really fail at with our law enforcement is the way calls are handled, because police officers wind up being sent to such a diverse number of situations that don't necessarily always call for a badged police officer.
Right.
That there could be, I don't know if it would require training to become some sort of a social worker police officer, but there are so many situations where we don't need to send flashing lights and a gun to an argument, or a mental health check or a wellness check. Like, the idea that we still send badged police officers to wellness checks.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
It's insane to me.
Yes.
And, a diversification of the practices and the standards of what law enforcement does in South Carolina. And again, I get that's going to start at the top, but the state legislature is where that idea needs to come from.
It is, yeah.
You want public schools fully funded, as state law already requires.
Yeah.
Where is that funding falling short right now?
A lot of places. We could be doing a lot more. We could be doing a lot more with what we have. And the thing is that we allow money from the federal government, but we're not using it correctly. We could be lowering property taxes because those go to our schools. We could be lowering property taxes so that we can use some of that extra funding to go, deal with our, teachers shouldn't have to go to Amazon.
Agreed.
Wish lists for their school supplies. We should be taking care of that. You're using books. If you're gonna be using technology, make sure that we have guardrails on that technology when it comes to students and the faculty and et cetera. When it comes to if everybody's going to use that technology and we don't need a book, we can resell those books or recycle those books and use that money back into the system. And also, we're just it's an all around failure.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the curriculum that we have for South Carolina public schools in PragerU?
It's absolutely ridiculous. We need a change at superintendent, and we need to take PragerU out.
Yeah.
And we need to deal we can't. Why would we spend money on PragerU when it's not telling the full truth and not actually telling the truth at all? It's just indoctrinating our children.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that we can take that off the bat and make sure that we're not spending stuff like that for our superintendent. And our superintendent has a lot of power in what our curriculum is in general. So a new superintendent is Sylvia Wright is magnificent. And she knows that. And I've talked to her about that. And our curriculum could be very,
well, here's the thing.
Revamped in general.
Teachers already went through the process of being educated in how to create curriculum and how to take that information to create the curriculum.
Yeah.
And our superintendent has basically said,
"Oh yeah,
we got this other group. We're gonna just pay them to create the curriculum for you." Parents in this state talk about how much they want to be involved in their child's education, and then you have a superintendent that basically doesn't say it directly, but you read between the lines, and she's basically said, "No, you parents need to stay out of this too. We're gonna go with this. We're gonna go with PragerU because they're putting money into my campaign." So it's crazy. Teacher pay, obviously, competitiveness with neighboring states. North Carolina teachers make almost 15 to 20 grand more at start than South Carolina. Georgia makes somewhere around $23,000 more a year than here in South Carolina for new teachers. What would move the needle on making South Carolina competitive to keep teachers?
For pay is great. It's great. if they made $80,000 start, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That would keep some teachers. But the thing is that they also need to understand that they have a lot of competing things that are happening in the schools. Student behavior.
Sure.
Endless meetings. No help from the state government at all.
Yeah.
Or like in general, teaching to test. We should be not teaching to test. We should be teaching to understand like that they'll know what's going on. Well, like we need to be teaching people like finances, stuff that you're going to use in the real world.
Well, when I was in school, we called it home ec. I mean, and home ec wasn't just making, we didn't cook brownies. We didn't clean dishes. We didn't do, it was also balancing a checkbook. It was coming up with the necessary, grocery, like a list for groceries so that you could walk through, and teaching you the importance of fiscal, conservative spending and things like that.
Yeah.
But I ask friends that have kids in high school, I'm like, they sign up for home ec? No. Well, home ec was required when I was in school. Like it was at least one quarter. It may have been an entire year, kind of like health and gym, whatever. I don't get it.
We need to require that for our students.
Yeah, teach them just the
basics.
Yeah,
the basics, and and add making sure that their parents know that we're helping them grow as individuals.
Yeah,
so that they can be successful in South Carolinians. Yeah.
Your opponent, Pastor John Lassinger, and I got to be honest, I don't know if I'm saying his name right or not. He frames his campaign around conservative Christian values and protecting freedoms. How would you draw the contrast for voters trying to decide between you two? Because that Christian thing is you can't throw a stick around here and not bust out a pane glass window.
Yes, he's there. Well, the thing is that
we can put that theory to test too. There's a church pretty close. I bet you I could probably get a rock through one of its windows from here. I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. Just not going to.
Thing is that my faith is tested on a daily basis. I put faith in regular people. I put faith in my heart, what I do on a daily basis.
Sure.
And I'm not here to say that I don't believe that there's a higher power out there.
Sure.
But I'm not using that as a cudgel to enact policy.
Yeah.
So I have to look my mom in the face. I have to look my niece and nephew in the face. I have to look my brother, all my family members in the face. And if I'm doing them a service by being in elected office and doing what's right for the for South Carolina and, us as Americans, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And right now, John feels like he feels
closer to God.
He feels like God is calling him to serve.
Sure.
And I'm called to serve to help people.
Well, and I think, I will, as someone who has a very loose relationship with religion, I tell people the same thing every single time. I am happy that you are comfortable in your faith. I am glad that you have not necessarily you or specific people, but that those people that they do find comfort in their faith, that they need that. But the thing that I especially my Republican conservative friends that are so faith driven, I try to remind them over and over that if you read the Bible, Jesus, first of all, didn't seem to want to create a whole constructive but that Jesus would prefer you use your faith as a shield to protect yourself and the ones you love and your neighbors, rather than using your faith as a sword.
Yeah.
Because what I get out of, and the reason that I have such a problem and a difficulty with Christianity, and you don't have to agree with me, but the problem that I have with it is that I see so many pastors and deacons and people that are whose livelihood is based in faith, that they use their pulpit as a sword to cause more harm than to create good. And that's ultimately the biggest problem I have. I'm certainly not saying that I couldn't find a way to potentially, but even when I was going to mass, twice a week, I still didn't get it. And that's not because they didn't try any harder with me to understand. I've read the Bible 6 times, and I think that my understanding of it is just as good as my understanding of Harry Potter. It's not that's not a knock on anybody.
No.
If faith is what makes them better people, then that's fantastic. But just follow through. That would be great.
Jesus, in general, so he was an immigrant. He was, for the people. And so if you're going to use that faith, you're going to just follow through with,
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I think if more of these candidates that were running that based all of their actions on their attachment to their faith would follow through on what it is that they do when they're in office, and what their faith should be telling them to do, I think the world would be a better place.
Absolutely.
District 88 is considered a reliably red seat. What is your path to winning?
My path is to reach 9,000 voters.
Okay.
And make sure that Republicans don't turn out. 9,000
voters would be considerably more than needed to win, because it's a gubernatorial race this year, and my hope is that that's all it is. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
It's getting enough people to show up at the polls to move that vote.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you win, what's the first bill or fight that you want to take on?
First bill. Minimum wage.
Okay.
Well, really, it is. It's I used to work at Publix. This was my first job. And no one should have to live on our minimum wage. We have to establish a minimum wage, and we have to tie it to inflation. Because if Congress won't do so, like I say we should, we need to tie it to inflation, and inside of Carolina, and make sure it doesn't deflate as well in the process of. But inflationary measures, that means it'll grow and grow and grow. But I don't think.
Well, let me ask you this about minimum wage before. If we were to enact a minimum wage here in South Carolina, that was something that let's bring the poverty level down 15%. Like that would be an accomplishment.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's something that our state could build on, session after session. So. Yeah. Every 2 or 4 years, we increase the minimum wage to bring poverty up another 15%, or bring the level of those on poverty down 15%. How a lot of the arguments against it are the small businesses, but we have seen states that have enacted minimum wage requirements not to employers that have more than if let's say you have less than 25 employees, obviously. The state can't force you to raise their pay, but it does force you to at least be competitive, because if they're doing something for you but could make another $2.50 somewhere else, then that does force you to step up the whatever it is you're doing. Either it's because of the service you offer and then pay, So there are ways to potentially handle that small business aspect of it that could make those businesses better.
Yeah, we need to have a caveat of who we're having people grow in.
Yeah. Okay. Last question, and this is one of those ones that sometimes gets people tripped up. But independents are obviously going to be what moves the needle in all of the races around the country. What would you say to someone who is undecided in this district to know what they need to know about you for November?
Always fight for your family, my family, anybody's family. And I may not have all the answers right now, but when we get a legislature that wants to fight and work for your benefit, I think that it will be much better if you had me instead of my opponent, because I'm going to want to work with a whole host of other people that are I'm going to work vigorously to make sure your lives are much better.
Yeah.
Than they are now.
I think ultimately what people should really do is just take a look at what Lassinger's record was on the things that he voted for and what impact that had on their lives. Because ultimately he just voted along party lines. He voted where he was told to vote, and they just used him as a vote. Yeah. And honestly, if I was John Lassinger, I'd be insulted if somebody said that about me. Yeah. So, look, I absolutely wish you all the luck in the campaign. Obviously, when you get signs, I will be definitely sporting one. And I got plenty of neighbors around here that are ready to do them.
Okay.
So, and if you come and canvass my neighborhood, I will canvass with you. So that is not remotely an issue. If you canvass other places, I imagine I can talk to some people about also coming and canvassing. So
great.
You definitely have support in me, and I would really like to see District 88 flip, because it's been supporting terrible people for a long time, and I'd like to see that change. Jeremy, good luck. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
All right.
That is going to wrap it up for this episode. Links to all of our past episodes, podcast platforms, and merchandise are available on our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com. And if you think our financial model of giving away free content and entertainment is silly and in the giving mood, why not become an official Nothinger and support the show? Members get early access to this episode as well as exclusive content. You can visit members.theallaboutnothing.com, or you can find a link on our webpage. You can also give a one-time donation through the same link. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can call and leave us a message, 803-672-0533, or you can email the show at theallaboutnothing.com, or join our Discord server, links found on our webpage. Thank you for listening, everyone. You all stay safe, be kind, and
keep your hands to yourself.
The All About Nothing podcast is a product of Big Media and produced and engineered by me, Barrett Gruber. Thanks to Cake for our intro music, Sick of You. You can follow Everything Cake, the band, at cakemusic.com. Thanks to Muff, the producer, for our outro music. You can follow Muff on Instagram at Muff the Producer. You can follow me across social media by visiting Linktree/Barrett Gruber. And you can follow Zach King on Linktree/AANZach. Want to support the show? Visit our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com, and become a member. There are several tiers available that give you early access to episodes as well as exclusive content. To find links to our social media, podcast platforms, and merchandise to support the show, as well as past episodes, visit theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can email theShow@theallaboutnothing.com, or you can call our number and leave a message. Dial 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is more than you can handle, check out our sister shows. What the Pod Was That with Carrie, Zach, and myself. Welcome to Wonderland with me. Politically Speaking with Erica, Kirsten, and Emily. And Black, White, and Blue in the South with Dr. Jameel Brooks and Bill Kimmler. Please subscribe and share this show. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe and punch that notification bell. Thank you for listening, and hear us next week. The preceding podcast is solely owned by the host or hosts and is distributed by Big Media, LLC. Copyright 2026.
Well, you've made it to the end. You survived the rambling, the tangents, and whatever nonsense we just subjected your ears to. Congratulations. Now that your brain is sufficiently scrambled, how about doing something productive for democracy? Before you go off to forget everything you just heard, do yourself a favor and double-check that your voter registration is actually legit at theallaboutnothing.com/voter. It's about the only way to make sure your vote counts, even if your taste in podcast is questionable.